to you, you. Good morning, good morning to you, you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning to you and many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. It is Get Free Friday. I hope that you're having a great and wonderful day. I was trying to bring up some information here, but I am having some trouble this morning with my tablet, so I am going to forego what I was going to bring up. Maybe I'll look at it through the lens of google.com and see if I can pull it up there. But how's everybody doing? It is over here a very rainy um, day. Let's take a look at what the hurricane update is for Hurricane Helene, which passed through beginning at 11 p.m. last night. It passed through Florida, made landfall in Florida, and it also battered the southeast a little bit, and now it is churning and moving over Georgia and headed toward Tennessee Valley. Um, Several people, unfortunately, are unalived at this time. They don't know, a specific count yet, but they do. They are saying that several people have been unalived. It is now a tropical storm after making landfall as a Category 4 hurricane, which is what I sensed when I got up on yesterday morning. And I urged my friends who were in the path of the storm to get out, travel, get away, evacuate, move away from the path of the storm. Some of them did that, but some of them wound up still being in the path of the storm, but not as a direct hit and not through the hurricane. So they're kind of in the tropical storm side. And good morning to those of you who are with me for the first time. This is Daring Dialogues, and this is our Get Free Friday. There has been some life-threatening flooding. Multiple states have recorded more than a foot of rain, with multiple flash flood emergencies issued in the southeast, including in Atlanta. Um, the storm's intensity, which is what I shared with someone else on yesterday, the storm's intensity was fueled by the warm waters coming out of the Gulf, and it was the strongest hurricane on record to slam into Florida's Big Bend region. I used to live in the Big Bend for 16 years. I lived in South Florida, grew up in South Florida, born in South Florida. I was there in South Florida for the Category 5 Hurricane Andrew, and that was a serious nightmare in and of itself. South Florida is still haunted by vestiges of the damage that was done by Hurricane Andrew. So, because I had lived through that, and most of my friends who live in the Big Bend area have never been through anything that catastrophic, I had a little bit more background and idea as to what kind of damage could be done. Because in our community, and we just passed the 30th anniversary of Hurricane Andrew, by the way, in our community, it took them days of, you know, it took them days of getting to our neighborhood. They had to like clear debris and all of that stuff. So it took days for them to even get into our neighborhood to even be able to provide assistance and see who was okay and all of that. And I knew and I know that the Big Bend doesn't have those kinds of infrastructure things in place. So that's why I was urging my friends in the Big Bend area that yes, if you can leave, if you can evaluate, if you can get outside of that zone, get outside of that zone because you don't know how long it's going to take them to actually get to people whose houses may be destroyed, whose power is out, whose food and water supply may not be what they think it's going to be. Like when we went through Hurricane Andrew, we thought, okay, yeah, we're going to get some rain. It's going to, take down some trees, but that'll be all. That'll be all. It won't be bad. Surprise. Everything in our neighborhood was unrecognizable. There were no street signs, there were no lights, there were no trees. It was literally like having to figure out where you were in your own neighborhood because it was unrecognizable. Water supplies, we had to go around and turn on the fire hydrants in our community with a wrench, my grandmother and I, to help people get clean water because it took days, not just 3 days. It took more than that for them to be able to even get into our community to help us, to bring us supplies, to see if people were okay. As far as power, we were without power for 4 months, not days, not a week. We were without power, electricity for 4 months. They had to call in the National Guard. We were put on a curfew because you could not be outside in the dark without power for 4 months. In my neighborhood, somebody got shot in the tush for climbing in their own house because they were outside of the curfew and then they thought they were breaking into their own house. So, having lived through those conditions, I was like, I don't want any of my friends to experience any of these kinds of conveniences if they can possibly help themselves get out of the zone. All right. So, again, they are still going to be assessing for many days to come how much damage has actually been done. I've looked at some of the camera footage while it was happening last night. People in the very, very coastal areas, Taylor County, Appalachia Bay, those areas, those people's houses were out in the bay. House just floating out in the bay. Okay. Um, and so where the storm is now, again, it's hovering over Georgia, headed to Tennessee. But listen to this update over 8 minutes ago, over 4 million customers are without power across the Southeast. In South Carolina, there's 1.3 plus million people without power. Georgia, 1 million people without power. Florida, 1 million people without power. North Carolina, 800,000 plus people without power. Even into Virginia, 100,000 plus people without power due to this storm. Due to the width of this storm, it's 200 miles wide. So even as you are, maybe further north of it or east of it, you're still getting the bands of this particular storm that is coming through. And I know I just sounded like I was the weather girl, but I want people to get some updates if you haven't heard anything about it. Um, Now this is outside. Again, this is what I was warning people about in Tallahassee. This is outside of the main area of the storm. This is all the way in South Carolina. Okay? And Tallahassee has nothing but canopy trees everywhere. Big, huge canopy trees that have never been under this kind of wind and rain and water pressure. All right. So I am checking on my people today. Um, some of them say they heard lots of things falling down outside, but they are staying inside. pretty much, because again, as this storm continues, it's not fully over yet. It is 200 miles wide. All right. Tampa neighborhoods are showing extensive damage, especially in Davis Island's waterfront areas. The National Guard again has been activated to help with rescue efforts, but the main point was evacuating so the National Guard would not have to be going in to help with rescue. All right. Yes, there are trees on the interstate in South Carolina. Exactly. On the interstate, because it was a category 4 hurricane. This was not your typical storm. This didn't just hit the ground at a tropical storm level. And if you know anything about the Gulf of Mexico, anything going through that path always speeds up because of the warmth of the temperature of the Gulf of Mexico. It doesn't slow down, it speeds up. So that's one of the things that is always concerning when a hurricane is taking that path. All right. We're thankful that people hopefully did what they needed to do in order to make it out. We are praying and giving condolences to the families of those who have lost their lives thus far in this storm. As I said, over the weekend, we are going to be taking a break, so you will not really see me online um, after this broadcast today. I'll be taking a bit of a break, and I probably won't be on at all on Saturday, and then we'll come back on Sunday and do our Sunday dialogue. Why I need to take a mental break? I need to definitely take a mental break from hearing about three, not one, not two, but three black men executed by their states unjustly this week. That I need a mental break. I need a pause so I can reflect on what that means moving forward in our country. Um, we know that part of it probably had to do with money. These men were um, definitely, their cases were showing that they were in fact innocent, and their states chose to carry out what can only be called a state sanctioned lynching anyway. And we talked a little bit yesterday, I think, about following the money, and that if they would have let them out, they would have probably turned around and sued the state. And rather than taking the L for that, um, they did the unjust thing. So I need to process that. And also, I just think that a lot of us who do this kind of work, who share these kind of stories, who are diving into the injustices that happen in our world, especially here in the Americas, sometimes we just need a mental break. Sometimes we just need a mental cleansing and pause. So I'm going to be giving myself that this weekend. And I hope that you will do the same. I hope that you will take time out to just refresh yourself, renew yourself. All right. I also teach courses during the week to adults as well as young people. So I am going to again refresh and renew myself so that I am refreshed to teach this coming week. All right. So let's look at today's word. And today is the 27th, right? Or the 26th? It's the 27th. That's what I thought. Let's look at Dennis Kimbrough's book, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. And what does it say? See, I didn't even look at, I promise you, I didn't even look at the word. I try not to look at it beforehand for this book. It says, you deserve a break today. That two times. M. Jocelyn Elder, Surgeon General, says this. Let's face it, Much of our community is tension filled. Without adequate methods to relieve this stress, many of us exist within a time bomb. Now, I don't know how much more the divine can come down and bop me over the head than to give me this word today. So I'm going to take it. Everything we do is either goal achieving or tension relieving. If a person is not happy with his progress, he should take a good hard look at everything he does during the course of the day. As he approaches his task, he should ask himself, is this goal achieving or tension relieving? We all need to relieve our tensions, but if we are doing too many things for escape and too few things for achievement, we are going to hold ourselves back. Wouldn't it be interesting if we surveyed the average individual to determine how much time is devoted to goal achieving acts? We might be amazed to discover what a small amount of time we actually spend preparing for the future. A doctor, for example, might spend 12 hours a day in the presence of his or her patients. Every minute with a patient would have to be labeled goal achieving. Time spent consulting with other physicians, however, could be labeled tension relieving. A teacher would consider time driving to and from school or in the cafeteria or the teacher's lounge as tension relieving. Now, I don't know who wrote this, but teachers in the cafeteria is not tension relieving, ma'am, sir. Oh, I've been on cafeteria duty before, and that is not tension relieving. You got to watch kids. You got to make sure all your students went to the line and actually got a lunch for the day. You got to make sure that they're actually eating the lunch and not throwing away their food and then telling their parents they're hungry later. hmm You got to watch out for food fights that get started or other arguments. So that is not tension relieving. Teachers' lounge isn't tension relieving in either because other teachers are in there getting their pressure off and sometimes talking about things that you don't want to hear. So teachers' lounge is not relieving either. So, but preparing the next day's lesson over the kitchen table would be categorized as goal achieving. There is, of course, a time to be idle, tension relieving, and a time not to be idle. The success of a person in any undertaking will hinge directly upon his making certain or she that he or she relegates their tension relieving acts to a secondary position. This gives our lives balance as well as much needed break from the routine. Now, most of you already know how I feel about the word balance. I really don't feel that human beings are looking for balance. I feel like what we're looking for more often than not is harmony. Harmony is I have several things going on, but I'm able to make them work with each other. If you think about a choir or you think about an orchestra, everybody's not necessarily on the same note in a choir. In an orchestra, people are playing different instruments, but you're coming together to create a harmony, not necessarily a balance. So when I think about life, I think about the fact that I have many things going on. Some things may take a back seat, some things may take a front seat, some things might work alongside each other, but as long as it's creating harmony in my life, I'm good with what things are doing in my life, in the position that they have. The goal is today, I will find the harmony between pursuing my goals and relieving my stress. And let the church say, let the squad say, amen. All right, we are back in reading Tina Turner's book, Happiness Becomes You, A Guide to Changing Your Life for Good. She is, in this particular chapter, she is talking about, I want to make sure I get it right, because we've been into this chapter for a little bit here. She's been talking about changing poison into medicine. Changing poison into medicine. And she was asked a question by one of her friends that was helping her through a hard time. Wayne, if you could have anything your heart truly desires, what would you want for yourself, for your people, for people you love, for your community, for the world? And she says, I dug deeper and deeper within, letting go of what was holding me back, and I began to see myself more clearly. That's when I saw what had to change for me to be happy and successful. When I could see myself clearly, I knew I could change everything. This is the essence of the chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Once I understood this, I intensified my practice. That's when I started chanting this phrase several hours per day. I was finally on the path to revealing my true self. By raising my life condition, I gained clarity and strength to find the best way forward and change every poison I face into medicine. If you haven't created a mission statement for your life, I encourage you to do so and be candid with yourself about what you value and what you truly want. It's all right if the gap between reality and your dreams is big. I think that's how it should be. As Einstein said, we should pursue goals that we can just barely achieve through our greatest efforts. When life is difficult, returning to your mission statement will remind you of your purpose, your vow, and help raise your life condition. When our life condition is high enough, anything is possible, including the impossible. The key is to keep moving forward, even if only in the tiniest steps, with the solid belief that you will absolutely get where you want to go. Remove all doubt from your mind and remember that the how isn't as important as the what. I think this is so powerful. Um, I will never forget one of my um, particular songs that I wrote called Restore Me. I wrote it during a time when I was unhoused. And that particular song was important for me to write because I wasn't writing it about where I was or what my condition was at the time. I was writing it for where I saw myself and where I believed that God would bring me and where I believed that God would bring me through a hard time. And so when I sing that song, I think about and I go back to where I was. Like when I wrote that song, I could remember where I was sitting. Um, I could remember like the place I was in. I was sitting in front of, on the steps of a church, and I was writing that song. And those words, God has not, God will not, God shall not forsake me. He'll be with me, He'll speak to me, He'll love me always. He's more incredible, more invincible than all. And the words revive me, renew me, restore me the years that were taken from me. Um, Another song called It Shall Be. It starts out mountain high, valley low. I'm pressing through this narrow road. God can't lie, God can't fail. No matter what comes, He will prevail. Why? Because I know the end, we shall win. It's already done through the Son. I'm holding to His word. I believe the voice I heard. I'm holding on. I won't let go. Why? Because I know He's in control. That's not a rhyme for me. That wasn't just a rhyme for me. It was a belief system for me that regardless of what I was going through and dealing with in the minute and in the moment, I know that the end story was that I already won. I knew that the end story was this is a temporary situation, this is a temporary place, and God is going to bring me to the other side. So those are two songs that when I sing them, I get a little choked up because I know where I was in the moment when God gave those songs to me as a place of hope. And like in her case, her chanting about her transformation and her change, her holding on to this one phrase about the power of change for herself is what got her to the place of being able to know that if she could see herself clearly, no matter what was going on around her, no matter the fact that she was staying with someone else, trying to raise her kids, music career not where she wanted it to be, she said if she could see herself clearly, she knew that she could change everything. For me, I knew that if I could have a clarity of mind to know that this situation is only temporary, that come hell or high water, I am going to be able to move through this. I can change everything. And so I don't have a fear anymore of loss. I used to have a little bit of fear of, well, what if this happens? Or what if I lose this? Or what if I lose it all? I've lost it all. And I have seen the fact that God can pull you through a situation even when you have lost it all, even when it feels like there's no hope, even when people have written you off and decided that that's all you're going to be, that's who you are. You're not going to, get back up from this. You're going to continue to go into a downward spiral. We've had people, my husband and I, we've had people drop out of our life and stop believing in us. So, what do you do when nobody believes in you? Do you believe in yourself? Do you keep going? Do you know that God still believes in you regardless of who else doesn't? And that sometimes God believing in you and telling you and pushing you and saying, you can do it, you can make it. This is why I don't get caught up on numbers. It's nice to have 127,000 followers on Facebook. That's nice. But if God is not my number one fan, what am I doing? If he's not saying and rooting for me, you're going in the right direction. Keep going, keep going, keep going. I got you. I'm backing you. I'm for you. I love you. I have a plan for you. That is what let me know that I can change anything about my life. I can change anything about my life. Again, I can change anything about my life because I've seen God show up when everyone else left out. I've seen God remain when everybody else took a step back and decided to be silent and didn't say anything, didn't offer anything, didn't offer any help, didn't offer any advice, didn't offer any prayer, nothing. Sometimes people do that in your life. They step back to see what's going to happen and to see whether or not you land on your feet. Well, I landed. We landed on our feet, but it was through the grace of God and through the presence of God. And so you're not ever going to see me say that God isn't real or God doesn't exist or the voice of God isn't real or Christ isn't real because that spiritual practice has proven itself to me. I don't know what your spiritual practice is, but I can tell you what has proven itself to me. That's my testimony. All right. So I think as we close today on me talking, I think what Tina is saying here is very powerful. Ask yourself, what is your mission statement for your life? What do you know about yourself? What are you committed to in this life? And understand when life is difficult, as she says here, returning to your mission statement will remind you of your purpose, your vow, and it will help you to raise your life condition. We got one more page before we close this chapter out, so I'm going to read it. She says, after I embraced Buddhism, I never doubted I would get to where I wanted to go. But much of the time, I had no idea exactly how I would get there. I left the how up to the universe and the mystical workings of my mind and soul. All along, I kept this encouragement close to my heart. One thing is certain, the power of belief, the power of thought, will move reality in the direction of what we believe and conceive of it. If you really believe you can do something, you can. That is a fact. When you clearly envision the outcome of victory, engrave it upon your heart, and are firmly convinced that you will attain it, your brain makes every effort to realize the mental image you have created. So, what mental image have you created for yourself? And then, through your unceasing efforts, that victory is finally made a reality. Or, in the words of the Christian faith, faith without works is dead, being alone. So, whatever you're believing, whatever you're conceiving, there is some action that's got to back what you're believing and what you're conceiving. She says here, as I worked on mastering my mind in this way and approach obstacles as catalysts for growth, continually changing poison into medicine without complaint, I experienced a deep seated shift. Miracles didn't happen overnight, but with patience and persistence, miraculous transformations built up within me. Gradually, improvements in my external environment came about too, reflecting those inner transformations. The cold darkness of winter that had blanketed so many years of my inner world finally started giving way to a warm, bright spring. That's when my real evolution, my revolution, began. One of the things that I have said many years now, because again, as I was in my time of prayer and meditation, Holy Spirit said to me, I want you to start saying this so that you can change your life. So I'm giving you a cheat sheet phrase here. Make me invisible to those who don't need to see me, and make me hard to miss for those who need to find me. I cannot tell you how that has helped in my trajectory for my life, in helping people who have been looking for me to be able to find me, and helping me to avoid people who should not be in my path. The other one that the Holy Spirit gave to me is to begin telling myself every single day, the goodness of God is coming to me today. What's coming to me? The goodness of God, because God's goodness far outweighs and exceeds any goodness that I could be bringing to myself. So the goodness of God is coming to me. Who's it coming to? It's coming to me. Are there any stipulations around that goodness? No. The goodness of God is coming to me. I'm not earning it. The goodness of God is coming to me. When is it coming? It's coming today. It's coming in the now. The goodness of God is coming to me today. I can't again tell you how much random goodness has entered my life just by beginning to declare that over myself every single day. Goodness to the point where I'm not looking for the goodness, it just comes. I'm not begging for the goodness, it just comes. I'm not asking for the discount, it just comes. I'm not asking for freebies, they just come. People just come up to me and say, hey, I've got this, would you like it? Hey, I want to give you some percentage off. Here you go. So, those are two phrases that have helped me to transform what's happening in my world and what's happening in my environment. I hope that I have said something that was helpful to you today, something that would shift your mind, something that would um, help the light bulb to come on today. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend, a weekend of peace, rest, safety, joy, justice, grace, mercy, all the good things that can flood into your life. That is what I wish for you on this weekend. Be well to my YouTube audience, and most importantly, be light. If you want to join us for the talk back, we'll be over on IG. The IG is at Daring Dialogues, one word. See you there, or until next time, be well and be light.